Alright, the 5th episode of Hazbin Hotel Season 1 might be my favorite so far, and it really helps expand on some of the ideas and theories I threw out in my last Hazbin video. Plus, it gives us our first real thorough look at Charlie's dad, Lucifer himself. There is so much to unpack in these last 2 episodes. So, in this video, I'm going to do a deep dive into Episode 5, Lucifer, Alistair and Lilith, and then I'm going to deep dive into Episode 6's exploration of Heaven tomorrow or the next day. Alright, let's get into it. But first, today's video is brought to you by my wonderful patrons. If you're a fan of the channel and want to support me directly, the best way to do that is Patreon, which comes with a bunch of exclusive perks. Currently, there are 5 BoJack audio commentaries exclusively on that platform, with a new one releasing every week. Basically, an audio track you can line up while watching the show to hear my takes and comments on the series in real time, conveniently located on a private podcast RSS feed. There's also currently an 11-minute sneak peek for a massive video that I'll be releasing in the coming months. And there will be plenty more looks at that video before it's released. Tiers start as low as $1, and today I want to specifically shout out our top tier patron, Ethan DeBoer. Thank you so much, Ethan. I couldn't do this without the support of viewers like you. Patreon is the best way to support me directly, and I can't thank you enough for watching. Okay, so I am convinced more than ever that there is some major connection between Alistair and Lilith. I think I may have had the specifics wrong in my previous video where I posited that perhaps Alistair was sent to help and or protect Charlie at Lilith's request, though I do still think it's possible. Regardless, I am very sure there's an important connection between the two. One thing is for sure, Alistair wants to place himself close to her, which feels heavily hinted at in this episode based on Alistair's interactions with Lucifer. For one, Alistair instantly began talking down to and negging Lucifer when he arrived at the hotel.
It's nice to finally put a face to the name. You are much shorter in real life.
Interestingly, Lucifer does not know who Alistair even is, despite his notoriety in hell, so it's clear that they don't have any personal history. But this entire episode has a pretty significant focus on Alistair playing up his supportive paternal role in Charlie's life.
Charlie has a very unique vision. I am happy to fulfill her bizarre requests.
Oh. Thank you, Alistair.
The entire first song in the episode focuses on this dynamic, with both Lucifer and Alistair trying to hype themselves up as being more supportive of Charlie and her dream.
Truly honored that we built such a bond. You're like the child that I wish that I had. What?
So this begs the question, for what reason would Alistair feel the need to A, endear himself to Charlie so strongly, and B, try to show up Lucifer in that role? Well, again, I think it has to do with his connection to Lilith. As mentioned in my previous video, both Alistair and Lilith have explicitly been said to have disappeared for 7 years, which is a very specific amount of time to pointedly claim for 2 different characters. They even make another point to call out that mystery in this episode.
You've been gone a while, and it's not like anybody knows why.
They don't need to know.
But possibly most interestingly, Husk also majorly implies that Alistair is actually doing somebody else's bidding.
Big talk for someone who's also on a leash.
What did you say?
So, what I'm wondering is, who is the one holding on to this alleged leash? Is it some unseen force or unknown character? Is it somehow related to Heaven? Or maybe it's Lilith herself? I think it's very possible that Alistair's attempts to take on a more paternal role in Charlie's life are attempts to endear himself to Lilith. It seems clear to me that he has some kind of infatuation with her. In fact, if you look back at the pilot, there's a very curious shot of Alistair in the hotel. He's staring at this portrait of Lilith, Charlie, and Lucifer. His gaze ever so slightly shifts over to Lilith's direction, he looks her up and down, and he smiles. It's a small detail, but it is very deliberate. So, if we assume that there's some kind of connection between this pair, we have to dig into what the nature of that connection might be. Is it romantic, power-driven, both? Neither? Well, I think they actually both have something pretty important in common here. Let's look back at Alistair's origins and the nature of his rise to power.
You began to topple overlords who had been dominant for centuries. That kind of raw power had never been harnessed by a mortal soul before.
So this detail is interesting to me. I think it means there are 2 potential answers to why Alistair has this mysterious connection to Lilith. My first thought is that Alistair's origins imply that until this point, Hell had never seen anybody show up and immediately seize power over the most powerful demons. But I think there might actually be one former human who also rose to power very quickly, Lilith herself. After all, she was one of the first 2 humans in existence and the first one cast down into hell, and as the first episode highlights, she thrived there.
Empowering demonkind with her voice and her songs, and as the numbers of hell grew, so did its power.
I think it's very possible that Alistair and Lilith have some sort of kinship in how quickly they adapted and thrived in hell, and perhaps the reason they were both missing for 7 years is one and the same. If Alistair was so infatuated with Lilith and her abilities, given their commonalities, it's possible he devoted himself to her in some way, hence the leash. Though, it has also been confirmed that Alistair is asexual and aromantic, so if this is the case, the infatuation would not be romantic in nature. But it also doesn't seem very likely that Alistair would give up power so willingly, or kneel to another being. I think there's another, more likely possibility, that Lilith is simply the biggest target on Alistair's list of demons to topple. That after garnering so much power over so many dominant forces in hell, that his next goal is to topple the Queen of Hell herself. Because if there's one thing that's clear, it's that though Lucifer is the king and ruler of hell, Lilith seems to be the one that harnesses the power. She's the demon who uses her voice to empower the rest of demonkind. Truly the most powerful place you can sit in hell. Plus, Alistair is the radio demon. He pointedly has his modulated, sometimes difficult to understand voice. Seeking out the most powerful demon who is specifically known for having a voice at the source of her power kind of fits, right?
Let's just say his broadcasts never lacked new voices.
On top of that, this moment in the pilot heavily implies Alistair's ill intent. Despite all the good he has seemingly done for Hazbin Hotel, when he agrees to help, he tries to make a deal with Charlie, and the framing of that moment definitely feels sinister. And it involves the exact same green glow we see him use when he uses his power, and we later see on the chains that he used to shackle Husk, who is someone he's previously made a deal with. But that begs the question in regards to this theory. If we assume he's trying to topple Lilith, why were both Alistair and Lilith gone for 7 years, and who is the person who he is seemingly working for? You know, whose leash is he attached to? If we assume that Alistair has more sinister motives in toppling Lilith and is on her leash, so to speak, it could be that part of Alistair's plan to usurp Lilith or gain her power backfired previously, putting him in her debt, which could also explain those simultaneous 7-year absences. It could also explain Alistair's fascination with Charlie and the hotel and his attempted sinister deal with her, getting close to Charlie and attempting to use her as collateral to either A, free himself from Lilith's grasp, or B, topple Lilith once and for all. And I mean, we get a great look at the extent of Alistair's demonic powers towards the end of this episode as well, absolutely decimating a gang that was attacking the hotel. There are a ton of possibilities here between the pair, but one thing is for certain, there is something going on there between Alistair and Lilith. The 7-year absences, the general attempts to get close to Charlie, the suspicious and deliberate shot of Alistair looking Lilith up and down in that painting, there's just too much for it to be a coincidence. Okay, since this was so episode 5 focused, let's talk about Lucifer as well, since he makes his big proper debut in this episode. And I think the most fascinating thing they do with Lucifer is they make him sorta insecure. The entire rivalry with Alistair in the beginning of the episode definitely brings those insecurities out, and it frankly makes a lot of sense for this character. This is a man who had all of these massive dreams and was cast out of heaven just for having them, out of his home. He was rejected on the largest scale imaginable, and on top of that, the love of his life has now been missing for 7 years, assuming he didn't have anything to do with that. Lucifer has seemingly lost everything he's ever cared about and was forced into this role of the ruler of hell, a place he doesn't seem to particularly care about. In fact, he seems to harbor some disdain for the people there, unlike Charlie. But it all tracks. Hell isn't just a prison for sinners, it was initially meant to be a prison for Lucifer as well, and even with his status and power, he isn't happy, and that's such a fascinating angle to take with this character. It seems like people could have expected this monstrous ruler given that he leads hell, but in reality, Lucifer is an angel who has lost everything. And they do such a great job with his songs in this one. The first is an attempt to win his daughter back over, and the last, titled More Than Anything, as this beautiful duet where the pair reconnect and relate to each other. He sings precisely about how he lost everything in his life, and how the only thing he has left is Charlie. And Charlie sings about her own lofty dreams to protect and help the people of hell from extermination, giving Charlie and Lucifer the connection that they both always craved. The belief that their dreams are worth fighting for, which is what got Lucifer expelled from heaven in the first place. Man, while I still do wish this had more episodes to really spread out the character arcs and mysteries, I can't pretend I am not loving the lore and world building. This is the kind of show that is so fun to speculate and theorize about. It's been a while since I was hooked on a show in this way. And the 6th episode drops even more lore and character bombs. So many funny that I'm going to do an entirely separate video about the possibilities based on all of those heavenly reveals. So look forward to an episode 6 breakdown tomorrow or the next day. But also, I want to hear your thoughts on Alistair, Lilith, Lucifer, Charlie, episode 5, The Works. Let me know how you're digging Hazbin Hotel below in the comments, and keep an eye out for my episode 6 video very soon. Peace.
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.